Good evening and welcome back to the Concord Victory Wealth Management and Financial Wellbeing series here at Stowe. This is part 2 of our personal finance series with Paul, who is an experienced chartered financial planner at Succession Wealth. In our previous interview, My Future Finances, Paul helped us understand the power of planning, from setting clear budgets and building an emergency fund to think about risk, adaptability, and informed decision making. Tonight, we're continuing that journey with the second session, moving on from school. This stage of life is where financial planning becomes personal, where choices about university, work, or a gap year start to shape our future.
Thank you, Paul, for joining us again. It's great to have you back with us. Last time you spoke about how everything begins with planning, but what changes the moment money decisions become yours alone, rather than your family's or the school's?
My immediate response to that would be the consequences. When you have a safety net that somebody else is there to give you money for you to spend on certain things, that's then your money and you don't need to consider any other expenses that might need to be paid. When it's only you making the financial decisions, if you don't pay a bill that must be paid, it's you that will face the consequences of that unpaid bill.
Leaving school often means choice overload: university, apprenticeship, first job, or gap year. How should someone think financially before committing to a path?
I think the best choice for you will depend on your future aspirations. What are you good at? What career do you want to pursue? There are certain careers, like law, where you will need a university degree to progress to maybe where you want to be in law. Therefore, you've got to go to university, so you don't really have much of a choice. Others careers, you might need more practical experience, so going on an apprenticeship might prove more beneficial, or just getting on-the-job experience. There will be financial consequences for each of these choices, but you need to think about your long-term goals rather than any short-term monetary considerations. Yes, if you go to university, yes, if you get an apprenticeship, you are going to be paid less money, or you're going to receive less money for those years that you are undertaking that training. But if as a result of that, you are going to be in a career with better earnings potential, then surely the long-term gain is worth that short-term hit of getting a little bit less money. But ultimately, you've got to decide if that short-term hit is worthwhile for you.
Many young people...
Sorry, one thing to add to that, it's always good to have a plan B, just in case plan A doesn't work out. So if you go all out, right, I'm going to go to university, I'm definitely going to go down this path, and you don't get the A-level grades to get to university, what's your plan B? Sorry, just ask that.
Many young people assume they'll start planning seriously once they earn a proper income. In your experience, when is it too late to start?
Whichever of the options that you choose, you're still going to need to manage your money. So some sort of planning will be necessary. In some ways, planning becomes more important when you don't have as much money coming in, as you need to make sure that you can pay for all the things you need and possibly want. In this aspect, planning is not always about long-term savings, but ensuring you can get to the point where you're able to earn a proper income without becoming bankrupt in the process.
How do you balance enjoying freedom, travel, social life, and new experiences with not undermining your financial future before it begins?
Great question. This is where we come back to budgeting. When you get to age 18, the world of credit opens up to you. Many companies will lend you money, usually at high rates of interest, until you can prove you're a good risk. If you spend money that you haven't got on something you don't need, you'll start to undermine your financial future. Just bear in mind that any money you borrow needs to be paid back from your future earnings. If you can't repay that debt, it's likely that any lender will do everything they can to get their money back, including taking you to court. This can not only impact your future ability to borrow money, like for a mortgage, but it will also affect certain career options. This is something we're likely to explore more in a future podcast. It might be boring, but draw up a budget to add up all the money you have coming in regularly in one column, and then all the money you must spend in another column. Take the expenditure from the income, and this is what you've got left to potentially save or have fun with.
What are some early warning signs that someone's financial behavior might be heading in the wrong direction, even if they feel in control?
I would say that someone who is regularly spending more than they have coming in with no concrete plan on how they will repay that debt is heading in the wrong direction. Hoping that you'll get a big pay rise at the next pay review, or you'll find a better job or a better paid job to resolve this issue is not a concrete plan. However, if you're getting into student debt that only needs to be paid back when you earn sufficient income, this is more manageable and it has a specific purpose.
For those not going to university, the financial picture can look quite different. What mindset or habits should they focus on instead?
I think the amounts of money involved might be different, but the process is largely the same. Often, more income coming in results in more money needing to be spent, whether that's on rent, utility bills, council tax, all of those sort of really exciting things. If you're fortunate enough to be earning money, but you're still living at home, it's definitely more tempting to spend all that spare cash you have at the end of each month. This is where financial discipline becomes important. Can you forego enjoying some of that spare cash now to put it aside for the future? This could be for things like a house deposit, rental deposit, or furniture, or some of it could be for the longer term, like retirement. If your employer will pay into a pension for you, if you also pay into that pension, then give that offer serious consideration. If you can afford not to access that money until you retire, this is likely to be beneficial for you.
When a young person earns their first steady income, whether from a part-time work or a first job, what's the smartest first move to make financially?
My suggestion would be to build up an emergency cash fund. Now that should be a minimum of 3 months expenditure, but preferably 6-7 months. If something unexpected happens, this will either give you time to find a solution, like if you lose your job, it gives you 6 months to find yourself another job, or it'll give you funds that you can spend to remedy the issue. So if your car breaks down and you need a car to get to work, well, you'll have funds to buy yourself a replacement car. Without this cash buffer, you potentially are going to need to borrow money from somewhere, potentially at a time that you have little or no ability to repay that loan. Unless, of course, it's mum or dad that provides the loan, but separate issue.
Many school leavers still have a safety net from home. How can someone learn to be financially independent while still accepting that support?
Great question. The bank of mum and dad has become an incredibly important resource for younger people. The last figures I saw estimated that the bank of mum and dad was equivalent to the 6th largest lender towards house purchase. There was in fact £9.6 billion lent by parents to children in 2024. That's the estimate. Because the cost of living has gone up considerably faster than earnings, more young people do lean on their parents' financial support. Practicing good financial habits like saving can enhance the impact of financial support provided by parents. However, if parents are needing to give you money every month despite the fact you're earning, then either you need to find a way of earning more, or you need to find a way to reduce your expenditure. The bank of mum and dad should not, in my opinion, just be taken for granted. If you never take any financial responsibility for yourself, bad habits will get ingrained and it will be difficult for you to adapt should the bank of mum and dad ever run dry.
Are there common contracts or financial commitments, housing subscriptions, phone plans, or employment terms that you think 18-year-olds often overlook or misunderstand?
That's a difficult question to answer, as some 18-year-olds are more financially aware than others. But one area I believe comes as a bit of a shock to young people when they get their first job is understanding their pay slip and what all the deductions are for. If you get a job paying you £24,000 a year, you don't receive £2,000 a month in your bank account. The employer needs to deduct income tax, national insurance contributions, and possibly even a pension if you've asked to join the company pension scheme. These costs are taken from your gross pay, and you then get paid your net pay. There's always considerable coverage in the media about taxes when a budget is approaching, and we are coming up to the budget later this month. And income tax and national insurance are two of the biggest sources of tax the government collect from people in the UK. These taxes help fund public services and are collected by His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC. It's their job to ensure that people pay the right amount of tax. Now, there are many different types of taxes that are applied to various activities to help the government and local authorities to provide the things we often take for granted. It's useful for you to know that we are in a self-assessment tax regime. What this means is that it is your responsibility to tell HMRC if you owe them tax. If you don't, and they find out you owe them money, you can get into trouble. In extreme cases, you can face large fines and even prison. Many adults don't understand all the various taxes, so I'm guessing younger people don't either. So that would be what I would suggest that you understand a little bit more.
If a student was to start a business straight out of school, what would be your recommended source of internal finance?
Really, I think if they're going to start a business, they really need to have got some savings behind them before that business starts. If not, then they're going to need somebody to bankroll them while that business starts generating income. Now, whether that's the bank of mum and dad, whether that's going to a bank and pitching to the bank manager, this is the business I want to set up, this is the amount of money I need to set it up, will you lend me that money? There needs to be some form of capital that you can call on to start that business. Unless your business idea can start generating income immediately, then having some sort of money behind you to start off with would be very important.
Finally, if you could give one piece of advice or one mindset to an 18 or 19-year-old that would pay off massively by their late 20s, what would it be?
This is a really hard question to answer. What can you do now that will make a big difference in about 10 years' time? This depends on so many different factors. It's difficult to come up with one thing that you can do or think. I suppose my suggestion is that you don't spend all your money every month if you can possibly avoid it. Try and put money aside for the future. There are lots of ways to save, and there are lots of reasons to save. Where you keep that money will depend on what you're saving for. Are you saving to go on a holiday with your friends in the next year? Well, if you are, this will probably be best in some sort of cash saving. Are you saving for a deposit to buy or rent a house in 5 or more years? Well, maybe considering investing in something other than cash could be more beneficial for this money. I believe that this is a topic that we'll revisit in a future session when discussing risk. So I won't go on too much more about it, but certainly just having some thought about putting some money aside for the future, I believe would be the best thing to get into your head as an 18 or 19-year-old. Don't just spend all your money because it's there.
Thank you so much for joining
you,
us.
Paul.
You're very welcome.